don't know
Thursday
how
night.
I did it, but I hurt my elbow the other day. I've got dry skin, I guess. Maybe it's the new medication I'm on, and trying to do these shows are kind of fun. And tonight we're going to bring in Michael Bowes, who is better known as Sports Time Machine. He does a variety of different projects. He's done some bowling on his channel. He plays a lot of Stratomatic. And you at the Final Four of your Strat Madness tourney?
No, I'm getting there. I thought I can get this a lot faster than I did, but unfortunately, it's going a lot slower with my schedule and everything else. But I'll eventually get there. So
That's all right. Michael Bowes is known as I said, a Sports Time Machine. He's formerly known on YouTube as Mr. Utah Mike. He's one of the biggest genuine wrestling fans I've ever met, and has introduced. I've covered what the name of the game, the pro wrestling game that I've done at least once on my channel. I stole it from watching one of his streams, and he also a bowling fan and has a pretty interesting story to tell. So, how you doing tonight?
doing great, Ron. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, thanks. So, tell us a little bit about the Mike Bowes story.
Well, whatever you want to know. I just turned 51 this past March, and I guess I grew up in New Jersey for almost 30 years. I've been out in Utah for about 20 years. So,
Okay, whereabouts in New Jersey?
Bridgewater. It's a central part of the state.
I used to work with someone that was in Bridgewater. As a matter of fact, it's a small world. He now lives in the Hershey, Pennsylvania. Todd B, how are you? So you're kind of in that halfway spot, closer to New York and near Rutgers.
I was only maybe about a half hour from 40 minutes from New Brunswick, and probably about an hour and a half outside New York City. So
yeah. So you grew up around there, and what made you decide that Utah was the place for you?
okay, so we're going there right off the bat, huh? So,
well, New Jersey and Utah are not two ships that normally pass in the night.
No, unfortunately. So there was this thing 20 years ago called internet dating that everyone put up a big X and said, no, that's taboo. You should never do that. It's too dangerous. And, how do you know the person you're going to fall in love with is not going to be the biggest creep in the world or be an axe murderer? So what happened was, I guess I met this young lady when I was living in New Jersey from Utah, and we started to talk, and we started getting along really well. And I decided to come out here. It was March, I believe, of 1999. Before I knew it, I was proposing to her July of the same year, and by the time October came along, we were getting hitched. So we were married within about 8 months or so.
So that's 20 years for you this year.
Absolutely, yeah. 20 years in September, so October, I should say, yeah.
Sometimes it works. There's a sim racer I watch. He found his now wife through one of those online dating things. She married him anyway.
Back then it was just everything was against you. We didn't have the $0 a minute for long distance service. You're going to pay every dang dime for it. So you're paying maybe 25 cents a minute if you didn't call during the right times.
Oh yeah.
So we both had to deal with parents who were like, you're not, you're staying at home, you're paying $300-400 phone bill. And see, there's a little more. Who was the interview that says, well, I guess it's like Andy Rooney said, there's more to this story, I guess. But, I just turned 51 this past March, and my wife's only 40. So if we do the math, she was 21 when I married her. So it was a little more of a different situation when I married her. She was, I just had turned 30, and she was only 21, so a little bit difference in age. So
Yeah, but they
So,
tell my wife and I that after 20 years, you've been eligible for parole by now, and that's absolutely true. But it says a lot that you got through that long. I mean,
yeah,
that's a big deal.
people
And
people people don't like to hear that that when I was when I was 20 years old, or I met my wife because she was only 8 at the time. Because we're usually between about 10 and a half, 11 years apart from one another.
yeah,
So,
well, hey, as
but
long as you weren't trying to,
it worked better when she was older and I was a little bit older. It didn't sound as bad. So
that's true. That's true. Now my wife's a year and a half younger than I am, and my mother was joking with me about being a cradle robber. But so I can't imagine what you went through. But hey, you made it work. Um, and that's something. And of course, people take for granted today that we can do all this for free or reasonably for free through internet and FaceTime and Google Hangouts and that just didn't exist in the late 90s. As you said,
we did it through AOL and dial-up. So
isn't that exciting? Wow. So you made it work. So what without, was the attraction? What do you two share in common that you were
I
willing
guess
to
we just
accept anyway?
I guess I'd say it was just something that I don't I know we both just like to hang out and have fun. It was just a mutual enjoyment for one another. We love just hanging, just either watching movies or just getting along with one another. I love being together with her. I love to take care of her, and it's
Mm-hmm.
it's a goal. It's a goal of mine to make sure that she stays safe. So.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go into, does she take any interest in your gaming?
No, she hasn't taken. She looks at it like Survivor Exile Island during baseball season. So
Okay.
usually it's baseball season, and she doesn't see me for a while. And so
She's a baseball widow. That's what
yeah,
you're
but yeah,
saying.
she was with. No, she loves to go. I mean, we went. I like I said, we streamed the college game the other night from our local. From our minor league stadium the other nights. We both went. So we love to go together. She doesn't hold the same excitement as I do in watching a game, but she'll watch it with me. She doesn't totally hate it, or she's definitely not
Right.
the psycho kind of fan I am. So
So the people didn't catch it that you went to the BYU Utah game in Salt Lake City, and you streamed part of an inning and some of the pregame stuff too. And looks like you guys had a good time.
yep, we have tickets for opening night next Tuesday for the Bees and Grizzlies game, so we're gonna have some fun there also.
So who does Salt Lake is obviously Pacific Coast League AAA, and who are they the AAA team for?
Anaheim Angels, California,
Oh,
Los
okay.
Angeles Angels, Anaheim. So
Terry Joseph. Yep.
Trout was up here for a cup of coffee before he thought he was just a little too good for the minor league system. So
That's cool. Terry Joseph joins us in the chat. Good evening. How are you? 1,000 years ago, when Burlington, Vermont was in the Eastern League in AA, we had the Mariners. And I got to see, I think I've told you, you've probably heard me tell this story before, but I did get to see, and the one time I went to see a Mariners game, Ken Griffey Jr. take batting practice. He was 18 years old, and he put on to this 16-year-old, he put on a magnificent show. You knew. You knew that talent was there right from the get-go. So, yeah. So, did you actually see Trout in Salt Lake, or was it?
No, I didn't. Unfortunately, he was quick up here so quick, and he was gone within, I believe it was a game or two. So
That's
I
good.
always looked and see if they got people hurt, who they're sending people maybe on assignment up here, and so far, it's been all right. But it's been kind of hit and miss. So. I'm wishing we had played. We went to see last year. We saw opening day. I believe was the Mets, which again we talked briefly about it. I still was trying to figure out how the Mets ended up being out in Las Vegas last year for their minor league system. But
Because Buffalo dumped them. That's why.
And it just still doesn't, make sense. And I kind of wish we could watch the Nats last year because we probably gotten seen Robles and Soto play then.
Dave Little comes in and says hello. None of them played AAA. They made the jump right from Harrisburg.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In fact, Soto started last year, and Juan Soto started in high A ball, and just did the Bullet Express to DC. Just an incredible talent. They won today, by the way. They beat the Mets. Todd B says he saw Jim Thome, Manny Ramirez, and Joey, or don't call me Joey, Albert Bell in the minors. I saw Ryan Sandberg in Waterbury, Connecticut. He was with the Reading Phillies. This was 1,000 years ago, back in the 1981, just around the time of the strike. And then he would, him and Bob Dernier, and if you've watched any of the Philly games, some of those prospects, I got the chance to see. Don't remember them by name, of course, but Baseball Reference says, "Oh, you saw them play." And then the Waterbury franchise moved to Burlington to become the Vermont Reds. And so, although I didn't live in Burlington at the time, Barry Larkin and Chris Sabo and Paul O'Neill and Tom Browning all pitched up here.
Wow.
Yeah, it was the first 3 years they won the Eastern League Championship. But you live in Salt Lake. You know how April weather is. Imagine it here in New England.
We kind of froze the other night. It was cold, clammy, a little bit rainy, but yeah, it was cold. So we keep looking at the weather again. It's supposed to be, rain, possible rain again next Tuesday. Supposed to be 40s at night, 60s in the afternoon. So we'll probably be bringing our blanket along and enjoying opening night. So
we had a wind chill of 18 this morning.
Oh, that's why we rolled.
It supposedly got up to 50. I don't think it did, but it was it was 18 this morning. That was fun. Yeah. So imagine playing in front of 9 people at a ballpark because it's 20 degrees out. We're just not big enough to be a double A city. We do short season single A here now, and number of players have gone through. We were with Washington because it was Montreal, and now it's with Oakland. So imagine the trek for those kids. You're starting 3,000 miles away on the wrong coast if you're drafted by the A's. We got AJ Puck, I think, pitched twice a couple years ago when he was the first overall pick, and they just shut him down after. Anyway. So you are an old school gamer. You do a lot of cards and dice. I know that most of what we see you do is on computer, but you've been playing Stratomatic for a while. First of all, tell us about how you got into gaming, what type of gaming you enjoy, and we'll go from there.
I guess the first Stratomatic seasons I remember playing and getting was the 1981 season, which was the strike shortened season. Yeah, strike year. So strike only had the against the abbreviated stats for baseball. So they were, but back then I knew nothing about the game or the percentages, or I was just playing because it was fun. So I had a neighbor who helped me get in the game who was a Red Sox fan, and so he was a guy I used to hang out with and play games with, lose games, 15, 20 to nothing, and most games we ever played. So he was much more athletic than I was. So, and he usually didn't care what he won games by usually. So I don't know if I ever beat him in a game before of wiffle ball or anything like that. So he kind of introduced me to that, to the baseball aspect of it, aspect of it. And I think I went out into a small store and bought it. And it was when Stratomatic came out with it, you got usually the two teams in a set. You got it really cheap, and you didn't get the full set. Then you have a little coupon in there where you sent out for all the teams for the season. And that's when I got the 81 season from them.
That's cool. Dave Little, by the way, to finish up our minor league conversation, grew up in Columbus watching the Clippers. First base was Don Mattingly and Steve Bye-Bye Balboni. Everybody thought Balboni was the slugger of the future. Well, he certainly struck out an awful lot. And D. Scott Howard, how you doing? I lived in a couple A-League towns over the years and saw lots of future major leaguers. And Bobby Catalano says hi. You were a baseball fan before that. Obviously, the Yankees were quite good in that era. When did you start me back you up a little further. When did you start getting into baseball?
I would say probably around 77, 78, probably for me.
Well, it's a good time to be a Yankee fan. I mean, you didn't go to bed crying every night, unlike some of us in New England.
Well, I guess we did. I guess we did for part of that 78 season, but I had a better summer than you did and a better fall. So,
yeah. So, you obviously grew up near New York. Did you get the chance to go to a game in that area? I mean, that's a tremendous era of, in all seriousness, now that I'm older and wiser and have won a World Series, did you get up there and take in some of that? I mean, that's quite a momentous era for the Yankees.
we went. We got tickets for the 1981 divisional series game against the Brewers, and we went to the clinching game that season.
Oh, that's awesome.
So when Gamble and Jackson went back to back, so we saw the final and everything else when they went on to play the A's that year in the LCS.
Yeah, you beat Billy Martin, as a matter of fact, in that.
Like 3-0 or something like that.
Yeah, it was back when it was the best of 5. Kenny Castro says hi, and Rob is watching us as well. So hello to you. So who is your favorite player?
I guess where always the argument happened was one of my, before there was Stratomatic, everything else. I know I heard you talking about this, Ron. The thing I got into, loved getting into, and collected all my life was the baseball cards. Was going with Mom to the pharmacy, which is usually was connected to our grocery store.
Yep.
And then we can go get the pack of cards for 50 cents or whatever it was.
Oh, absolutely. 20. Never paid.
And then it was finding your cards that you like and then trading everything. Because I used to trade as badly as the Yankees used to trade when they got rid of such superstars like Willie McGee for Bob Sykes. So I made some of those trades look legendary. I was like, sure, have him. He looks pretty good. So yeah, sure. Give me about 5 of those and I'll take one of those. He's definitely worth it. Sure, I'll do it. And then
though.
I know better now than what I would probably do to him, or if we ever had a one-on-one. I haven't talked to him in many of a moon, but if we ever had this conversation again, I would ask him a lot of different questions about growing up. And one of the ones I would ask him, and yes, I know, being the Vermont, New Hampshire type guy now, was the rivalry we had between Munson and Fisk. And I was always a Munson fan growing up, and he was always a Yastrzemski fan growing up. So if we ever traded or bypassed Thurman Munson baseball cards, he found the need to obliterate any Thurman Munson card I ever had. So it was ever he used to take him and pound the living crap out of him like he was, going through a bad work day. So
they hated each other, Fisk and Munson. I think they had a healthy dose of respect, but a healthy dose of hate. Todd B still collects baseball cards, and I guess we can talk about that in a second. I lived in New Mexico. Hated Munson. He just looked mean and surly. Not as surly as Goose Gossage, but I know I've told the story on someone's stream. It might have been my own, about crying when Munson died because you knew what it meant. And, you don't get to be captain of the Yankees. There have been very few captains of the New York Yankees. Do you remember where you were when you heard about that?
Unfortunately, playing Stratomatic or gaming, I never played or never wanted to play the 1979 season. I don't want to play historical transactions and go through August 2nd, 1979 again. It is way too hard for me. I mean, seriously, that's just been way too much of a. I think I was in my room or something at the time, and it was during the afternoon, and hearing, I guess, a news flash come through the TV. They did have breaking news back then when you went up to the TV and actually changed the channels, didn't have a remote control for it. So, you're growing up in that time period. Where's your remote control? It's in you go up and actually change the channel with your hands. So
Dad slapped you in the back of the head and said, "Go change the channel." Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So.
So no, I don't blame you. It wasn't a good season for the Yankees anyway, but even if that hadn't happened, that just made it 18,000 times worse. So
yes, I do. I do like to watch the '79 game that ESPN seems to have the only footage of. The game of where I guess the Mercer game where he almost single-handedly beat the Orioles and passed the torch, and the big eulogy.
Yeah,
the ABC. Yeah.
Yeah. ID Juster says hello. Yeah, so that was the night of the funeral. And I remember that game. I think I just said I lived in New Mexico, so everything was 2 hours earlier. So that game came on at 6 o'clock as opposed to 8. And they showed it live. Normally, when you live out in the Mountain and Pacific time zones, then they would try to things on tape delay for those things because they played up against the news. But that night they showed it live.
I love back then, I mean, we see you and I just like transgressed or go different. We asked each other in the middle of the night because growing up, it was damn it, the Yankees are playing a 10:30 game out west and never really stay up for the game. It was too late. Mom bitched, it was, I really didn't get into radio a lot growing up. I don't remember listening to a lot of radio. I think when I started not having TV as much, it's when I started finding Yankee games on the radio, or maybe hearing, I probably started listening to more of the games when I heard about John Sterling calling the game. So I ended up finding that one and listening to it. Listen to him, even though people hate him or love him, it's just an enjoyment to listen to it.
Someone must love him. When I was getting into it, there were very few Red Sox games on television. This was before we had cable, but we got the Mets games and we got the Braves games, and later we got the Cubs games, and other places got Yankee games. But you grew up in an era where if you stuck your antenna out, you got 100 Yankee games. You didn't need to watch anything else. You got the Yankees, you got the Mets. I don't know if you got the Philadelphia stations growing up, and whatever NBC and ABC would offer. So you got a whole ton of baseball, while the Red Sox for a long time were a pure radio experience for me. But you still had on television, you had the Scooter, Phil Rizzuto, Bill White, and Frank Messer, who were classic combination. And the Scooter was a riot. I've discovered as an adult.
Yeah, I did. We had something what's called UHF, so I was able to get the channel. I was able to get channel 17, and they used to play a lot of old science fiction shows like Ultraman, and used to have stuff like that on there. So they used to have some real bizarre shows on there. And then if I wanted to watch the Phillies on there, they were on there a lot, and that was during their peak seasons, late 70s, around 1980 also. So that was pretty cool too. You got to listen to Harry Callis back then too. It was, and also, yeah, I mean, you probably got about 80 Yankee games a year when they weren't on, if they were on regular TV, and then they were on, I think, WABC, I think it was, for their home games on the radio. So, which if you go back in time, you do some YouTube searches, John Sterling was working for WABC at the time too, before going to Atlanta and, working down there, and then coming back, it seems, coming back again for the Yankees.
Yeah, John's been working a long time. You go back and watch the YouTube of the Braves Mets game from July 4th of '85. He's the one that's on the call at the end of that at 4 a.m.
The Rick Camp call, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to eat my hat, and he pretty much had to. But yeah, he also called basketball down there, called the Hawks games. So baseball was did you follow other sports? Baseball, obviously your favorite, the one you feature most on your channel. But what else did you get into growing up?
Baseball was always my favorite go-to sport. I'm not a huge hockey guy. Usually the football I follow, I actually became a Pittsburgh fan because of my same neighbor who liked the Steelers too, I guess. So I kind of saw them from him and everything else and enjoyed them. So I ended up watching them. So I saw, a couple championships back to back. I can't say I was a homer or something like that, because I remember watching the two Super Bowls against Dallas. So, and then they beat the Rams the following year too. So.
Yeah, no, it's the right era to become a Steelers fan, for sure. And you're the one that asked to play in my 2007 Patriots Challenge to play the '86 Giants.
I did, yeah. I grew up. Unfortunately, I grew up. I was in college then, yeah, run college for the '86 Giants, and remember watching again. This is before DirecTV had a control of the universe, I guess, in the NFL Sunday Ticket. So we had no choice but to either get the Jets or the Giants, either the Jets from Shea Stadium or the Giants from the Meadowlands, and you didn't get a second game that you wanted to watch. You automatically were going to get that one of the two games. So
what you weren't absolutely in love with the Richard Todd show every Sunday on NBC? I don't understand why.
Actually, I was more of a fan of the Jets with Richard Todd and Wesley Walker.
They were
I remember
good.
him being one of my favorite. Yeah,
They
remember
were
him
good.
being one of my favorite players growing up. But no, I mean, watching the Giants just sometimes eat the clock for 40 minutes a game kind of gave me that idea of, heck, if someone could ground and pound a team like the Patriots, it'd be Parcells and that kind of game plan. If they can look basically what the '90 Giants did to the Bills in that Super Bowl.
That was one of the greatest game plans ever in a Super Bowl, was what Parcells did to the Bills. Bills got a point a minute and lost. They had the ball for 19 minutes and they scored 19 points. Dave Gardner is here, and I think I got everything else. Basketball? You into basketball at all?
I absolutely. Again, it was the '81 season for me, and yes, I was this time I went against the grain of my buddy next door. I was actually a big Philadelphia 76er fan. So I grew up. I grew up hating the Celtics as much as I could, and now not as bad. I don't find myself as bitter for them as
you and I would not have been friends as kids. I can tell you that right now. You liked the Steelers, who I could not stand. You liked the Yankees, who I cannot or could not stand. You liked the Sixers, who I definitely could not stand, although I did like Julius Erving. And that probably would have not been too many conversations with us as kids. But anyway, that's the beauty of becoming adults. I mean, you become all the things that you hate as oh God, you're that fan. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, but for a while there, like I'm saying, I was putting bags on my head for a lot of these years on these Sixer teams, but I'm glad to see that they're moving in the right direction. After all these teams of tanking, they're finally doing something. So,
Todd B brings up Darryl Dawkins, Chocolate Thunder. Boom! I remember watching some rooms break. Okay, so you start gaming wise. You start with Strat Baseball. Now, before I ask you any further, during the strike that year, the Red Sox radio network and some of the boneheaded decisions the Red Sox have made over the years includes the firing of one John Miller. Did you know that John Miller called Red Sox games with Ken Coleman? And
wow,
so
I did not know that.
During this, now there you go. You learned something new today. And you're already in the bedroom, so you can just go right back to sleep. So during the strike, the Red Sox radio people would recreate the games that didn't happen using Stratomatic.
So, again, I was again not having the complete sets or knowing Strat like I do now. It seems like I learned more Strat in the last few years with the nuances and playing in as many retro leagues I do right now is where I learned the cards. I learned the lefty-righty splits. I learned what it means to be a lefty destroyer, and why you don't put certain lefties out there against certain righties, a la Sexto Lascano in 77, 78, who was like 1100 OPS just against lefties alone. Talking about a card that was just absolutely demonstrative against one side of pitching. I mean, I didn't learn all that till I thought, hey, he was a good ball player, let's put him up. Who thought about I wasn't a yes I understood John. I mean, I watch your replays as much as I can when I'm working. So of course when I'm watching Oriole replays, it's the John Lowenstein and the Gary Renicky show against lefty and right-handed pitching. But that was the early platooning back then. So, and yes, Stratomatic cards were for that. You would find a John Lowenstein card, and he had absolutely nothing on his left-hand side card, but boy, get a right-handed pitcher in there and watch out.
Yeah.
Same thing with Renicky too. Half the time too, you put a lefty in there, and boy, he just kills him, and put a righty out there, not so much. He had a couple of years he was pretty even both ways, but yeah, they had some years you can tell Weaver made sure he didn't put the one guy out there, and then the one guy he did. So
Weaver was really advanced too in what he did. Now Casey Stengel platooned a lot with the Yankees. Of course,
yeah,
when you have Mickey Mantle and Yogi Berra in the middle of your lineup in the 50s, and then throw in Roger Maris in the early 60s, you just really can't go wrong. D. Scott Howard has a DVD of the 77 soccer playoffs with John Miller on the call, and I don't think that's a rug, D. Scott. I think his hair was really that bad, the typical 70s Anchorman hair that would have stayed still in a nuclear explosion.
It's amazing how many jobs he's had for as great a career he's had, from Giants to Baltimore, and why teams can't hold on to him. I mean,
well, Peter Angelos fired him because he was too critical of the Orioles, and he's from the West Coast, so he went to San Francisco. Poor guy got stuck working with Joe Morgan for 20 years.
Not a fan of Morgan, huh?
Not as an announcer. Great ball player, but not in a, yes, Joe, we realize the Red Sox didn't win that he won the 75 World Series. It's why the Reds are considered one of the greatest teams of all time. All right, so back to the gaming part of things for you. Did Strat baseball lead to other Strat sports, or how did that happen for you?
Stratomatic baseball did lead to the 81 season for basketball. It's a rough game. I don't play it as much as I used to. 81 also led to me of getting the full 81 season, the last NFL Strat season that came with the enlarged cards. Mm-hmm. Because after that, they went from the big cards out to the little smaller ones.
Right, in the club today.
So
I've seen you play some college football too with that, but it's on the computer.
Yeah, I did that with the computer. Actually, somebody gifted me or let me borrow the old Stratomatic College from the card sets. That's like a gold mine to find. If you find that online,
yeah.
So I've been messing with that. I just don't have the good camera right now where I can zoom in on cards and want to see how I can do this. So I'm trying to figure out how I can do that. And they're really a fun type set. Can I get these? I mean, this is what the gold mine this is what the gold mine sets look like for the Stratomatic college football. Oklahoma State. Yeah, this was buried. Yeah, this pass defense advance. Basically, what happens on running backs, they give you all the running backs on one card, and running backs, fullback, halfback, quarterback, and then you go on your play selection, go off tackle, halfback, and then you look under the results. You don't have individual cards for your running backs. It's just everyone's involved in one.
That's awesome.
This is very. Yeah, it's a pretty good system they came up with.
It's difficult. I don't know how many teams that they did, but when you obviously the NFL, 28, 30, 32 teams, but when you have Division I college football, 116 to 117 teams, or, even if you go with the big power conferences, it's 50, 60 teams. Cards are expensive.
Yeah, they are.
All right.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm saying that the season he gave me was that Barry Sanders one where he won the Heisman. So that card is absolutely loaded. So yeah,
89. Oh yeah, they were good. They were good. Other type of gaming you did as a kid, teenager?
Probably played more on the video game system, as I was more of a Strat fan, I guess. So I wasn't too much a regular gamer, any kind of war gamer. Yeah, I played the Monopolies or Risk or stuff like that, or Stratego. I always liked that as a kid myself. Kind of a cheap man's Risk kind of thing. So
sure, nothing wrong with that. Everyone also had an Atari. What's the game you played?
First game a system I remember getting for was ColecoVision. There was no sports I remember for it. I used to remember my mother playing it too a lot too. So, I probably had a better relationship with my mother than I did, let's say, my father. So, she's the one who took me to games all the time. She's the one who picked me up from athletic events. She's the one who God bless her soul, took me everywhere and make sure I got place to place for that reason. So
did you play any varsity sports at all or no?
I did not. My mother didn't want me to play football because I had a neurological impairment, and I still do. It prevents me from doing certain things faster than most, and it kind of led me to where I was not able to drive, which is why she was able to get me to point A to point B. We went to a place, I believe in New Brunswick. I had a teacher, I believe, take me. I probably wasn't sure what was going on at the time. They did some advanced training for me at this center, and it came back where it was like, Michael, you're a really nice guy and everything, but you would probably do a lot of us a favor if you didn't drive. Your speed from your foot to the gas and the brake is really slow. It could cause a huge problem down the road. So when I did the behind the wheel driving, I did. I remember doing that, but I also remember the person who sat right next to me also had the gas and in case something happened, they had control of the car too.
Yeah. But you said that despite the fact that your mother didn't want you to play football,
I still ended up on the team. I still ended up on the team for 3 years because I was asked by the varsity coach to be a manager for sophomore, junior, and senior in high school.
You got the chance to at least be a part of it, even if you didn't strap on the pads or anything like that.
Right, and I did, and I basically knew a lot of the kids. There were a lot of the kids I grew up with through middle school, went to high school, so they were all friends of mine. So that worked out real well, and I really loved a lot of the coaches that were on the team. And the same thing happened. Basically, the same thing happened with baseball. And I played when I was a freshman, had one hit, I believe, it was like 1 for 11. And I still remember that. And then when I was a sophomore, I was the final cut of a varsity team I was playing for. Basically, they had the roster set in stone. They had preseason games, and then I was called in the office and goes, "We're kind of concerned about your about seeing pitches and be able to do this." It's like, and it came out, "Well, we've talked to your mother about this." It's like, oh great. So that really kind of hurt. So you've already talked to her and let her know what's going on. So in case I came home very upset, she understood everything. I says, but, we'd like to have you still stay on the team and do this, because they knew I was being, a manager for the football team. So they kept me on the baseball team more for that. And because of my love of numbers back then, I love this. They had girls doing a lot of the stat keeping more in high school. When I was able to control, when I was able to take the books from them and do it, it was probably the best time of my life. I love keeping.
I bet. So, and you had a Stratomatic background too, so you understood, even if you didn't understand like you do today, numbers.
Well, no, you know what? That's that my mother said I learned to count while watching a game show called Gambit.
Oh, it was an old Martindale.
Yes,
21. Yep.
And that's how I was like, I asked my mother, well, can we play 21 now? You're not old enough. Well, Mom, I'm sure I can count. Oh, I bet you can't. So we play. It's like 7, 10, 17 plays. Like, how are you doing that? I don't know, just watching TV, and it kind of came to me, and she goes, "Holy cow!" Yeah, and that's kind of how I kind of picked up numbers really quick. So yeah, I didn't get in this gaming until in early '80s, but the idea of me playing, how I learned things growing up, and one thing I did learn was numbers. So, and then I kind of pre-learned to do spreadsheet so I could tell the coach, and say, "Hey, coach, here are our numbers through 6, 7 games." He goes, "Oh, wow." I said, "Yes, I know." So that's something the girls didn't do. They just kind of gave the book back every day. I kept the book every day. So in free periods, I go, all right, so 18 at bats plus 17 at bats plus 16 at bats plus 5 hits equals God, you should be playing on the bench. You're not hitting worth of crap. And I got these. Then it's like I got the team guys coming over and goes, "Hey, what am I hitting? Oh, wow." And I say, "Yeah, really, you should be on the bench, No, but
So, by the way, I like your girlfriend, so you're definitely on the bench there, Squirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so the boss always appreciated that. So, and during I don't know if this had to do with all the sports, but I remember in senior year in high school, I was awarded this, again, the super duper award, and it's not awarded to many. And so it's kind of made me really sad. And I guess my mother wasn't, again, see how my mother's involved in my life. She was contacted to get teachers pictures of me when I was a kid to totally embarrass me. So so they made this huge collage of me, because I remember them asking me questions and had no idea why. They're going, who's your favorite football player? Who's this? And so they took that and they took comments from that, and they made this huge collage out of it. And they actually had me, like, for my growing up years, from when I was just a little tyke up to to my graduation pictures in high school.
That is sweet.
Yeah. So again, if you're
at the time, but that now is really sweet.
Right. And if OG was here, he's more into the military gaming, or people are into it. I received what was called them, because our field was named after him, because we played in Raritan, was a field called the John Basilone Memorial Award. He was a very, famous person who fought in, I believe, was Vietnam. So if you watch some of the Vietnam shows on like HBO, you can hear his name being called out, and the different platoon leaders and stuff like that. So he was a very famous person in our area, and our field was named after him. So the award was kind of in his honor.
Oh, wow. That is awesome.
So when I find out why I answered a question who my favorite football player was back then, I said Walter Payton. He goes, even though Mike is a big Walter Payton fan, such and such likes this guy better. It's like, oh, okay. Now I see why you asked me that question, because they put this whole big collage together for me. So
that's incredible. Well done. And so obviously your love of numbers has taken you far into your professional life, if I remember correctly.
Well, as in what? I mean, I play Strat, and I love that for sometimes numbers and looking at stuff.
The night auditor at a hotel.
What's that?
I thought you were the night auditor.
Oh yeah. I play the.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I play. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I basically play the landlord man after 11 o'clock every day, and I have to go around, knock on doors, and collect rent every day. So that's difficult part of my life. I've had the job now for about a year and 4 months. So
what'd you do before? If you want to share, you don't have to share it.
Well, I do, and what the thing is, before that, the reason why I'm in this position right now. I'm basically basically you can call me as basically the on-site manager for the place where I live at. So we get a nice reduced rate, or the rate comes off my paycheck every 2 weeks.
Yep.
Basically to stay here. Yeah, that's because my wife and I have been hotel hopping, let's say, for the last 2 or 3 years, because we had some issues with someone in our lives who kind of messed us up, and we haven't had a home in the last 2 or 3 years. So we've been
still recovering.
So we're still transitioning, and when we're staying at my owner's one of other hotels and paying a ton of money for it, he came to me and said, "Hey, you're up so late at night. I got a hotel downtown. If you want to help run things, I really need to get the place cleaned up. You can do this for me. We'll give you a place to stay." My wife is since disabled, so it's I needed to get her off the street, and a place where I know she's going to be safe. Like I said before, her safety is my number one importance.
Absolutely.
And I have to make sure I didn't. So instead of accepting a bigger paycheck and trying to find a place and coming to work every night, we decided we're going to stay here, right, basically on site. And then I know where she is every night when I go to work. I'm only a stone's throw when she needs me, and when I go to work, I'm only a stone's throw getting back to work. So if you see So if you hear my boss yelling and screaming in Persian, that's because he's trying to collect rent that people haven't paid yet today.
Okay. Yeah, my wife works across the street from where we live. She works in an assisted living facility, and she's an LNA. And I think that's come up several times in conversation, maybe not specifically with you, but that's what she does. And yeah, and there's building managers here. The one that just moved in, his wife has a severe case of MS, but they pretty much get free rent to deal with all of us that live here. And so I understand how that goes. It's a fulfilling job, I would think. All right, so let's talk about something a little more positive for you then. You played Strat all the way through. You moved out to Utah. Oh, the wrestling game. Let's go back to the wrestling game because you mentioned you were playing that in college, and obviously you kind of hinted that maybe you didn't hint. Maybe I just picked it up that the person that designed it and all that. Tell us about that wrestling game.
I don't know him. I don't know him. Well, I know the guy who created the computer version of it. But let's kind of go back, like you said. Let's do this the back way. When I first picked up the game, I think I was a junior or senior in high school. So we're talking about 1984, 1985. Okay. The game was presented as a card. And again, I get the right camera. We can do this. I see people playing the Fistles, the game Rob exclamation points now playing in Dave Little game, the game with the super duper graphics.
Yeah, the Legend of the Wrestling game.
The Legend of the Wrestling game, correct. That's basically how this game came up. If you ever read a wrestling magazine called Pro Wrestling Illustrated, which was one of the Bibles to me, probably it was a I guess I didn't get into wrestling until I was maybe probably 14, 15 years old. So I didn't pick it up like 5 years old and just loved it growing up. I picked it up really late.
Most guys pick it up about 13, 14, 15 years old.
So I ended up picking up this game, and it was the actual original cards and dice version of what's called the Pro Wrestling Superstar game. Basically, again, each person had their own card. They had everything on there. So instead of the computer telling you what happened, it was actually the Stratomatic of wrestling games to play. And I know Dave Little talks about his game being that way. They're both probably very similar in how the games are run. The full composite of the card is on there.
I'm going to cut you off for just a second because I'm going to lose this when the chat goes up, and I know you can't see it. Stratomatic Delaware wants me to tell you, wow, Mike, love you, brother. We learned so much about each other during these talks. I thought you'd like to know that.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So it's cards and dice and very storytelling to a degree, and Legends of Wrestling definitely is a storytelling game through cards and dice. But go ahead from there.
I know we share things in common and how we messed up our college degrees by having we first thought having a major in gaming first and then an education second.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Because I remember, I mean, this is just a quick thing. When I went to a college up in Bergen County, New Jersey, and again it was through my what's it called? It was for my disability, so they were able to get me into their program. So yeah, I remember playing the game that we loved was a game called NFL Challenge Football, the old game by XOR, the one that ESPN used to play their fantasy tournament matchup, fantasy season matchup. I love that game. It's one of the greatest games ever made. Just they stopped making it. So I played it before on my channel once or twice a long time ago. Mm-hmm. It's a game where you watch X's and O's fly all over the place. Well, in the computer lab where I used to play in, that was kind of frowned upon about bringing games in and playing. So we kind of had to play. All right, you play lookout. You look for the old hag in the office. And sometimes when we get carried away, we weren't looking for the old hag, and it was like, all right, you're out for a week. So yeah, so
in college,
yeah. So and that was when these games were played on floppy disk.
Yes, the 5 1/4 floppy disk.
5 1/4, yes.
I had Wayne Gretzky hockey, and I had just gotten a computer. The state had bought me a computer to go to college with, and I had it both on 5 1/4 and 3 1/2, and it came on 5 1/4. discs. Imagine that. Combat Painter is talking in the chat about he was thrown out in New Jersey, New York, and Delaware. It's surreal. Yeah, but he's still a Mets fan. You can take the fan out of New York, but you can't take the New York out of the fan.
I guess as much of pain and punishment I've taken it for him doing the Mets replay he does, go on, brother. If you can finish a full season with them, then you're
79 Mets. Oh my god. There's just no. It would be like me pulling out the cards and dice to play the 1930 Red Sox. Like, you could, but why the hell would you? I give them all the credit in the world. But anyway, so yeah,
to transgress. I love that season for Strat because of the offense that year.
Offense. Oh, absolutely.
It was just outright just insane. I mean, yeah, the Red Sox picked the wrong year to be in that division with as much offense was in that.
Red Sox never recovered from no net and just had terrible ownership. Let's see.
So again, going back to your question, college and ruining our education with gaming.
Absolutely.
This is where I first started my first league, as I took I believe it was they were a Weaver baseball.
Yes,
and
I had that too.
I was able to get, I believe, 8 physical owners together, I believe it was, and we basically drafted it. We basically took 2 teams, and then we drafted other players along with it. And then I would spend times in this other auxiliary computer lab that someone told me about that no one ever monitored. So you had it to yourself, and no one cared. So when no one was up there, I used to put that baby on 5 monitors and go, okay, sim day, dunk, 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 dunk. And it was pretty fun. It's like, I was like, do that. Like, all right, cool. It's like, I was able to do that. And it was, that was pretty fun. That, it kind of gave me something to do when I was bored or, it was fun. That was good part of college. And yes, the wrestling games you brought back, there was a reason why I took you to this point in my life. Is because the wrestling game I picked up at home, I thought, let's bring it to college and see what happens. And then I met a good friend of mine who was I met him during I believe my freshman or sophomore year in college, and we still are good friends up to this date. And we used to play a wrestling league too with the same cards and dice game. So we would sit down literally on the floor in one of our little all-purpose rooms and basically scream and holler and throw dice across the room and play this card and dice game and actually make up rolls, make up feuds, make up bludgeoning things you do to one another. And it was the fun is when sometimes we get 4 people playing with us too. We get the other couple people that we drafted with, and it was just this all-around fun stuff. Again, this was the card and dice version of it before I found the computer version of Pro Wrestling Superstar many, many years ago when I moved out here.
Yeah. Pro Wrestling Superstar is what we're talking about.
Right, yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. No, I mean, that's the cards and dice thing. I mean, you've heard me talk about the leagues and the hockey and the baseball and all that, but that's the fun. I mean, if you're not going to do that in college, what are you going to do it? And look, I forgot the exact sentence that you said, but that could have been the motto of me flunking out of college too.
Yes, that one year, the one year I did remember failing 2 classes, and yeah, and it wasn't like, oh, you're drugs or alcohol. No, nope. I never. Nope. It was just probably did not spend my time wisely. I had a friend of mine who we just loves kind of hanging out, spending time together.
Wisely, you just didn't spend it in the classroom.
No, I didn't. Or mornings got to me really fast, and I didn't learn till later in life not to schedule morning classes. Because I ended up getting my major in communications, so I was trying to get into broadcasting for everything else. So
we'll get to that in a second. I realized that my second year that I did not need a college degree to do radio, and that most of the games I wanted to do were pretty much inaccessible, and I wasn't getting there anyway. So what the hell was I doing? All right,
I broadcasted Division III basketball for my college. I've been a play-by-play guy for our Division Division III football team too. So we had a really good communication program, a really good radio station. They allowed me to actually do my radio. They actually allowed me to do my wrestling show on radio back then. From between 86 and 91, I was able to get on the radio. It was a small frequency radio station that got across campus, maybe a little bit further. Then, so it was nice. It was a ton of fun. I loved doing it. Actually, I had a friend of mine who helped me I did 2 wrestling interviews when I was in college. I did them with 2 gentlemen by the name with Johnny Rods, who was the owner and proprietor of Gleason's Gym in New York City.
Oh, wow. Okay. That was his real name then.
Yeah, so he unpredictable. Yeah, no, that was his real name.
Show or whatever.
No, it wasn't. It was, and again, he took me. I remember him taking me to New York and actually going inside Gleason's Gym and doing the interview with him. So
that's awesome.
So yeah, I did the interview with him, and I also did an interview with a gentleman by the name of Pretty Boy Larry Sharp, who is also the proprietor and owner, God rest his soul, of the Monster Factory, which came out of his school was Bam Bam Bigelow. So again, a very big name out of the wrestling. So yeah, again, I don't know where they are right now. And I was just talking to Rob earlier this morning during I better try to find a way to stay awake, or this is going to be a long enough morning for me. And Rob exclamation point, I should say. And yeah, I mean, I'll break it right now on the Ron Juckett show that I do want to, and I want to get a pro wrestling show on here somewhere. So it's going to happen. It's going to be like a retrospect wrestling show from the past, the present, kind of what you're doing here, Ron. Mm-hmm. And then, so basically I'm going to try to have everyone watch the same show that we're watching. And then we're basically going to analyze the history of it and everything else.
Awesome. It's funny because about a half hour ago in the chat, Rob asked if there was any interest in a weekly wrestling show. What's a small world? I want to get into the combat painter, passed a computer baseball class with an A+, and Stratomatic Delaware finished football simulation with honors. So just in case you don't feel bad about that. Oh, that's awesome. And Combat Painter used to work the nightclubs in New York. Very cool. And of course, most of us knew about Captain Lou Albano because of his interesting relationship with Cyndi Lauper.
Exactly. That was when Rocket Wrestling hit big, and that's when wrestling hit big. So, and with it being WrestleMania weekend, that's why I was hoping I can get something started with it this weekend. So going to a buddy's show this weekend, gonna enjoy the show and hopefully maybe come back from it. And problem is, let's see if I have to work or not. I'm trying to get a boss to trying to see if we can work my schedule around so I don't have to come back and work when I get home that night. So
sure. So how did you find yourself involved in Strat Retro Leagues?
I had a buddy of mine who used to play Stratomatic. I've been a friend of his forever. And then for one day, I guess I asked him about Stratomatic and something else, and he said, "Well, maybe we can play on Skype and stuff like that." So we actually started going on different sites that Stratomatic has. We used to cut out cards, print them, and play them that way, as before we even really had the cards. And and then I eventually got the computer game. He got the computer game, and then we talked about, maybe there are some leagues out there. So then he ended up getting 3 different computer leagues. So I'm in 3 different retro leagues right now. I'm in a 1983 season. It started in our 1980 season. We both took, everyone took the 16-team league. Everyone took one team, and basically we chopped our roster down, and then we did a full draft of who people didn't keep. And then we go for year right now. So we're right now in the 83 season for that.
Oh, sweet.
So now I'm in 2 other leagues he wanted to make just because one wasn't enough. Now I'm in 3 different ones. One was a 1 decade back, and one's like even further. One's further back than that. So one I think is a late 80s, both steroid eras, both with a lot of offense, not much pitching at all.
So that's fun.
If you like offense, yes. If you don't like to manage your bullpen, that's even worse. So I really like playing Strat. I like playing Strat back in the 80s where my fatigue levels were 2 or 3s and not 1s, or
Not
especially
ones,
at
yeah.
1s. You'll give them maybe get them 1 inning and that's it. So
yeah,
it's just so much harder to manage bullpens right now with the current genres and the current leagues.
oh,
And
it's
it's just
different, especially now with openers. Oh my goodness! So Stratomatic is talking about a Delaware pilot. He watched WrestleMania 3. Bill Frelick was in the cage match, and Hulk Hogan and Mr. T against Roddy Piper, and who else? Remember?
Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
He didn't know. So if that's what
Okay,
it
yeah,
is,
that was WrestleMania 1,
Okay.
and WrestleMania 3 was actually the Andre the Giant Hulk Hogan match that was built up for about a year then. So they finally turned Andre into the vicious bad guy after being the friendly giant for all these years and being in Princess Bride and stuff like that. One of the greatest movies of all time. So
I'll take your word for it. All right, so let's ask the question. What decided to make you want to get into YouTube?
Oh, probably what everyone says. I probably ran across Al Red Sox fan, and because he was probably playing Stratomatic one day, he's probably sat in chat, and it looked interesting, and I really wanted to broadcast. I've been wanting to get involved, but it's always been difficult for me to get into to get the work into that without no experience. It's that same, well, you have a great voice for this, but you have no actual experience. It's like, well, how am I supposed to get experience if you're not going to give it to me? Well, I'm not really sure, but we can't really use you right now. So it feels like I've thrown part of my degree away and I can't use it, but hopefully maybe there's a way of doing this and maybe still have a chance at, doing dreams, still later on in life.
I'm going to finish off the wrestling thing because I know you can't see the chat. Orndorff was the tag partner, and Cowboy Bob Orton and Jimmy Snuka were at ringside. Dave Little fills us in with that.
Yes, they were, and they were the corner people. To me, honestly, WrestleMania 1, I was fine with the tag match, but I wish WrestleMania was March of '85, and with everything that happened in '84, Dave Little, to me, they just didn't do it. But WrestleMania 1, if they could have pushed the feud out further. I wish they would have kept Slaughter around and done Slaughter Iron Sheik but the problem was they had Iron Sheik in the tag team match, and they won the tag belts that afternoon too. But I wish they would have done Slaughter Sheik that afternoon also, and I wish they would have done Snuka Piper and finished their feud off too. But they wanted Hogan and to do the Rock and Wrestling finale feud with him and Mr. T against Orndorff and Piper.
And that's the most wrestling chat you're ever going to hear on this channel. But it was. I had a lot of people I went to high school with. The first one I went to that were huge wrestling fans, and would big deal for that. And I guess was that their first pay-per-view? That WrestleMania must have been early pay-per-view.
It was considered a closed. It was considered a closed circuit. I'm not sure if
closed circuits. Okay.
Yeah, so I think the first pay-per-view might have been 2 or 3. And I think after that, that's when the cable providers eventually got the pay-per-views together to do that.
When we had the boxes, sure,
right. Or you're like me, you turn on channel 622 and see if you can wiggle in the reception so you can get it for free.
Yes, I remember.
I used to try to do that for Sports Channel because my mother never got me Sports Channel when I was a kid. So when the Yankees were on Sports Channel, and the only games I would ever get was on Channel 11, Right. So it's like, the game's on Sports Channel. Why do that? It's like, your next Yankee game will not be for next Friday. It's like, but they have like 8 games before that.
That's right.
What am I supposed to? It's like,
what the radio's for. Yes, when they wouldn't. When I was in college, 1,000 years ago, they would not. We could get cable in a couple of the suites, and I lived in one of the suites that you could get cable, but they would not trust us with any of the pay TV channels. I don't know why. We had to pay for it all up front anyway, and it was like $5 a month. So there was no HBO and there was no Nesson, which was the Red Sox channel when the games weren't on over-the-air television. And so there was plenty of nights that we sat there and tried to watch the Bruins and the Red Sox through the squiggles, and of course, trying to see the boobies on HBO. through this week as well. ID Jester, the kind and generous-hearted guy that he is, always a pal and never is mean to anybody. You know I'm setting you up here, right? Ask Sports Time Machine what it was like losing a complete strat newbie in your '68 World Series replay. You taught him well, I guess. He beat you.
He beat me 2-1, I believe it was, in 11 innings. Yes, ID. We need to play game 2 in that as soon as possible. It was a great game, but you know what? I overmanaged, and I wonder if I had it to do it again, I would.
Though, isn't it? Because you play the cards and not necessarily the game. If that makes any sense.
Well, you still overmanaged because I should never have intentionally walked the game-winning run to start the inning. But I had a pitcher on there who I was running out of pitchers. The pitcher I had in there.
Who'd you walk?
What's that?
Who did you walk? Kurt Flood?
No, I think it was Tim McCarver. I think.
Oh my God, he'd never. Don't get me started on Tim. Don't get me started on him.
He must be the same Hall of Fame as Chris Collinsworth to you, huh?
You know, I don't really watch a lot of football, so Collinsworth doesn't bother me at all. But the Tim McCarver set back baseball television for 10 years between him on Fox and Morgan on ESPN or Sutcliffe.
I've been telling everybody NBC needs to get baseball back again. So
yes, but you know. Scully's retired and Tony Kubek's 97 or is 85. It was McIver. You don't even know the name of your own players there, Kirk. What the hell? Jeez.
Yeah. So he was a left-handed pitcher, had a right-handed pitcher on the mound who gave up a ton of power to lefties. I said, you know what? I'm not going to lose the game on a walk-off. I walked him. Shannon comes up and of course ID goes, oh, let's bunt him over. Yeah, go ahead. Roll the goddamn 3 and beat out a freaking base hit on a bunt. And then I forgot who had the base hit afterwards. I'm sure ID will tell me. He'll love to rub it in, I'm sure. Who had the game-winning RBI.
He's just that kind and courteous gentleman.
And that was a single 2 stars, game over. So basically, I intentionally walked the game-winning run because I was afraid of Tim McCarver getting a home run off my card. I probably should have pitched to him. We would not have the bunt. We may still be playing then, but you know.
Yes, Chris, he used dead ball. Yes, he did. Yes,
I was originally supposed to be part of the dead ballers, but actually was put on the better team. Oops. They put me on. They actually put me on the ID Jesters, Chris. So,
My one hitter in game 1. I am so impressed with that. My shoulder still hurts, but
that's why your elbow's bothering you.
Yeah, yes, because I had to outpitch the rear admiral. So I would think though, as to be serious for a moment, that with the internet and such, with everything now being streamed somewhere, that there is a place for you to either do some, depending on what sport you'd want to call, that especially the high schools, that there would be a place for you to do that. You have a magnificent voice. The first time I caught one of your baseball streams, I was surprised how polished it was, because I didn't really know you or know your background. But I had figured from just listening to you that you had done this before in some capacity.
Yeah, I've done it before. A little bit of, again, mostly it was college work, and of course it was you're watching a game on TV and you're probably playing Phil Rizzuto at home watching the game and everything else. So,
come on, Phil was eating cannolis and not watching the game. You've heard the stories of him looking at a score sheet and seeing, what's Mattingly done today, and there's a big WW there. You remember what that meant? A WW on Rizzuto's scorecard?
I don't think so.
Wasn't watching. and the cannolis and the fact that if it thundered, there's a chance of a thunderstorm.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah. He had to get back to Hillside, New Jersey in about
Was he married to? Wasn't Cora?
Cora, yeah. She outlasted him. So
yeah. ID wants you to know that was his expert manager style that came through.
And is it funny for someone who can't stand? I mean, I'm not on the dead ball team. I'm on your team ID. But isn't it funny how you used dead ball logic to beat me in a game by getting a walk, a bunt for a base hit, and then a base hit after that? You know, a National League game, huh?
Congratulations.
So
I love it. You know, watching Al do the Red Sox, he's playing dead ball with not the Red Sox, the 77 Mets. He's doing dead ball with them. And it's fascinating to watch that work because
you
they're
know,
above 500.
and he's playing the same game you do in Action PC. I don't know if Al was to pull out the 77 cards and dice for Stratomatic or even the computer game, would he have the same record with that than he would with the 77, Action PC? I don't know what the difference. So, I mean, to me, there's that question of, which I know Al's not in first place and he's like second or third. He's actually making a challenge so far.
But he's not going to lose 100 games with that team either, which is
no.
The Action PC games play very well. I know
I've never played them because they're kind of expensive on a kind of a little limited budget right now. So sometimes, I had to get the Strat when I did for my birthday for 3 or 4 different leagues I was in. So I had to make sure I take care of that. So I was just but I'm probably if it goes on sale or something like that, that'd probably be something I'm going to get because I love seeing the other games on there. So it's like I'm not a huge tennis guy, but I kind of grew up in the Borg and the McEnroe and the Connors type stuff. I was like, well, that might be cool with the different tennis games or even the golf that I remember watching. I didn't get a chance to watch your stream when you did your Masters one. So
from ASG Golf, no, that's I mean, there's just so much out there that wasn't out there. I flunked out of college with just a Stratomatic. I can't imagine today with all the stuff that's out there. I've got my baseball games and all that. What else do you do currently to relax besides the Stratomatic and the YouTube? Bye. Take care, Krista. And thanks for coming. What else do you do to relax?
Well, unfortunately, I work about 55 to 60 hours a week, so there's not a lot of downtime. I find
overnight, so so it's always 3 a.m. to you.
Yeah, too, and I'm working till almost 1 o'clock Eastern. So when you're playing your lunch rush game, I'm in the middle of my busy time at work usually too. So usually when I hit 11 o'clock is usually trying to go collect the rent. So it's time to go do that. And usually that's when my boss comes in, hopefully too, so I can get out too. So that's why I schedule these things on usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. I know I'm off tonight, so I don't have to worry about trying to get some sleep again. So
yeah.
But we're going to go we're going to movies. We're going to do some. We're going to the Fresno Salt Lake game next Tuesday for opening night. So we got.
That's the Washington team.
Yeah, that is actually the Washington team. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, I'm going to open it up at 9:15. If you got any questions for Mr. Mike, please put them in the chat. I love to see what you actually have to come up with. If we've got over it, but that's fine. So you get the chance. You like Salt Lake, I take it then. You don't feel
no, I don't miss. I'd rather have the slower atmosphere where we're at right now instead of the fast hubbub. I haven't been home since 9/11. So
almost 20 years.
20 years, but 2001 I think it was. So. And there's been no reason to. My mother ended up moving out to Idaho, so she was closer out here to one of her sons and grandchildren. She was out here, so there wasn't a lot going on for me. I lost a brother to cancer a few years ago, so I have one more brother. I have 3 older brothers. Sorry, so I have one that's still in New Jersey who I sometimes talk to online, and I have an older brother who has probably was my Yankee influence growing up and playing and watching Mel Allen's This Week in Baseball every Sunday afternoon. And then the Yankees usually followed it being on PIX every Sunday. So I remember growing up and watching Sunday baseball with him afterwards. So, and I ended up being a lot closer to him than any of my brothers. So, and for that reason.
ID Jester has a couple of questions. We'll start with the one he always asks his guest: DH or no?
Absolutely, unbelievably, yes, DH.
American League fan. American League post 73 fan. There.
Absolutely. So I'm definitely a Ron Bloomberg type fan, the original DH for the Yankees. Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, yes, I played, and yes, I know how to double switch like I did with Jester during the Stratomatic game. I know how to do the nuances and stuff like that and do what I need to do. But to me, I'd rather have the ninth player be a hitter. So like when you're watching All-Star games, I'd rather have a ninth player be a hitter instead of having a pitcher in the All-Star game too. But then if you had to hit the pitcher bat in the All-Star game, then you have the fun of you can make more switches that way and you can get guys more rotated in. So that's, I guess, the good thing of having the pitcher bat in the All-Star game. So
you get carpal tunnel keeping score of an All-Star game that way. And ID has tried to fire you, and that's not going to happen. And mute his ass now, and this is blasphemy. But I'm not a big no DH guy either. It was interesting when I started covering the National League, just that you could see the subtle differences in the game. But yeah, as a Red Sox fan, I'm eternally grateful for David Ortiz.
Absolutely. Now, it's like, that's how Yankees lost the services and with a great pitcher in Chin-Ming Wang, because he ended up getting hurt in that game in Houston's Minute Maid Park when he was running the bases. They said,
did that to his knee in Los Angeles. All right, favorite. Sorry about that. D. Scott, you were so dead. Favorite baseball seasons and why?
Sorry, it has to be. Unfortunately, it was before the 79 season, but 78 was probably my best.
Why would it
my best season be? So either was 78 or the seasons in the 90s when they started winning again, 96, 98, 99, 2000.
That 98 team is one of the best of all time. Randy Luxembourg joins us, and he asks, 39 Yankees or 27 Yankees?
I guess 39 was probably more of the DiMaggio type era, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Probably everyone talks about the Murderers Row and the Gehrig and the Ruth. I'd probably go to 27 Yankees, even though I'm not totally sold on their pitching staff. So it came to a full-blown replay or a 7-game season. I bet they can be beat, because I bet you if you can control Yankees bats, you're going to beat them. I'm not a huge fan of their pitching. And of course,
you don't trust Urban Soccer to win a Game 7 for you? I'm stunned. No, I'm not really.
Well, again, if I don't know what his numbers were that year, but if he gave up 280 hits and 300 innings, that card's going to be full of hits. And I just know, again, this reflects back to Strat, not in baseball, but it's, again, if you can control it's like when you go to a baseball ballpark and when I go to a minor league game and a batter hits a ball to second base, I guess that's a ground ball A, ball C.
I've done that. Or if you play APA, that's a 24 or 25.
Right.
And 13, there's a lot of 13.
Strikeout, yeah. Good. I'm not the only one who takes my gaming outside and goes, I should shut it now.
No, I remember my buddy Tony Whitehill, who pops in and out. He's the morning guy on the radio up in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. We would watch a game and go, oh, yeah, X-Play. ID, being the cranky old man that he is, says 39 Yankees or 27. Who cares? It's old-time baseball. Yawn. They play their games under 5 hours. D. Scott Howard asks, you like the DH or are you a baseball fan? Mute. Someone suspend him. Serious question. Best childhood memory.
Best childhood memory. Wow.
It's a good question. And it came from ID Jester, by the way. So.
Oh, wow.
You want a moment to think about that?
Oh, yeah. I definitely need that moment. I mean, I go through different sports in my lifetime, and remember being on a high school trip and watching the 82, 83 Sixers sweep everybody when they got Moses Malone from the Rockets,
Yep.
and finally put that team together and won it. I mean, that was one of my big memories as a kid, basketball fan, football fan, beating Dallas and almost back-to-back seasons, 35-31. And that was the
But there's
Vern
nothing
Lund.
from like when you were a manager or when you got your hit. I think that's what they were.
Yeah, but that's yeah, but I'm starting to think if I had an absolute memory that jumps at me, that was that. I remember the one hit I had was I don't know, of course I don't know the pitcher, but I remember who it was against. It was against school up in Clinton Township called North Hunterdon, and I had the hit against. It wasn't actually our normal coach wasn't there, so it was somebody else, and they put me in the game, and I hit a ball down the right field line, and it dunked in for the base hit. So it was. I remember that being a base hit. I remember in high school, my big memories of my last high school football game was played in the worst absolute. Thank you. The worst absolute weather you can play a football game in. The cheerleaders used to come during the big rivalry game. They used to come and toilet paper the houses and decorate the houses for you for the big game every year. And that game was played in an absolutely mudstorm, and it was my last big remembering high school football was a 0-0 tie against our most hated rivalry. So,
that's bad weather. That's bad.
No one could move the ball. It was just absolutely horrible. And you came home and you're absolutely muddied from head to toe, and it's like it was just ridiculous. I mean, it was just and it ran. I remember it raining most of the week too, and even the day of the game, it was still pretty bad. But we still get about 10,000 people. It was awesome. New Jersey football is very high in for a not as good, I guess some people say, for Texas or Ohio, I've heard, but yeah, it's still pretty important.
Kurt from Bradenton asks, how well are you going to pitch tomorrow night?
I guess if I know Mr. Kurt, I guess I'd better be pitching if my life depended on it, I guess.
Who is your card modeled after?
I don't know. Dave never asked me. I thought I was pitching for the dead ballers, and I was told, I guess I was traded to Jesters, which is fine. I'm more of a traditional baseball fan because I don't like dead ball for the big reason is it bugs me. I love to play a season of the old time baseball, but the way Strat-O-Matic does, and I was explaining to ID this on how errors are made. I'm not sure if this made the broadcast or not. But the way, if a guy is fielding, and you played enough Strat, Ron, if a guy is fielded as a 2E29 and he was a full-time player, 2 means he's basically like, middle of the average fielder.
Right.
And then the 29 meant he actually committed 29 errors, the way the Strat engine works. So, but with dead ballers, you were a 265 and getting an error off that advanced fielding chart, which I can't stand. I love the super advanced chart that we all use. And it's just like, that's dead baller's 7th error of the ball game and only in the 4th inning. It just became, holy cow, I hated X readings playing in this. I mean, I was trying to play 1930s that someone at it was 1920s that someone had given me.
God. That
probably the greatest Babe Ruth card ever made.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my God, but these guys are so awful in the field. Again, what I love about that season was I wanted to take the White Sox and see if they can still win the championship before Landis basically suspended the entire team and basically not, knocking that team out pretty much. So, because they made it through most of the season before they got suspended.
Who's your favorite pitcher? Is it Guidry? I mean, if you're going to go back to 70,
yeah, then that's one of my baseball childhood memories was his 17-inning strikeout against the Angels, and that was televised on.
Yep,
the 18 strikeouts probably against the Angels. Got Bobby Grich, I believe, 4 times or something like that, and yeah, it was I remember that growing up for being a huge Guidry fan
It's a huge deal.
or stuff like that.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mike? Now's a good chance to get him because some certain person from Florida keeps sending harassing messages, such as, quote, "You better pitch like your life depends on it because it just might."
Well, we got a 2-0 lead. It's not, not like we can. I guess Mr. ID wants to go up 3-0 in this series tomorrow. Which would be nice
love to pitch the game 4 sweeper for sure. Favorite superhero?
Batman, absolutely. He's I can absolutely definitely do a retro Batman and Robin type YouTube show too on the old show. When you're sitting at work and people are behaving themselves, which here normally they're not, but when they are behaving themselves and it's nice and quiet, found an old 1940 Batman for the first time.
Oh, really?
I was like, wow, I didn't even know this even existed. I mean, this is like they grow up in the suburbs instead of being, the rich, the Wayne Manor,
the Wayne Mansion, right?
And they would actually get dressed in the car. They pull up the convertible and go around the corner and get dressed in the back of the car. It's like, oh God, this is cheesy. It's like, yeah, Batman. It's absolutely. I love the show. I can still watch it. You asked me, well, okay, I won't go that far, but best Joker to me, I guess, was Heath Ledger. But still, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Cesar Romero. But
yep.
But I'd probably Ledger was a better Joker. But I was a big fan of the show growing up. Still would love to watch it if I see it. Always memorizes me. Absolutely.
Who is your favorite Caped Crusader then?
Oh, Batman, I guess. Right?
No. Which of the people who played Batman is your favorite?
I'm definitely. Well, Christian Bale started growing me because I think he played a really awesome Batman. But to me, I just grew up watching Adam West, and he just played the stoic Batman, and just had that, Robin. We teach you, young man, to be a lawful citizen and not to park near a fire. Oh, gee, Wilker's Batman. I did not know about that. Now you know. Now you know, Robin.
That was the only Batman I was familiar with growing up was the TV series, and so when the movie came out and it wasn't funny, I'm going, wait a minute. This isn't one I wanted to watch.
Or you know what? Or as everyone remembers the show, it's Batman and Robin climbing up the
yes.
With the thing and saying, "Oh, hello, citizen. You rang. Oh, hello, Lurch." And different people they used to open up the window and stuff like that. Or I don't know if Abbott and Costello ever opened the window up, but I remember when Lurch did and some other people. I was like, oh, really?
They actually have one clip on YouTube of all those scenes from Colonel.
Yes,
Clay.
I've never seen it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
The unbanned D. Scott Howard asks, favorite Catwoman.
Definitely probably would have been Julie Newmar. So. Eartha Kitt wasn't too bad to me. My favorite villain, if it comes out, if someone asks, I for some reason always had a frigid loving of Mr. Freeze. So, I'm not a big Arnold fan of that, or even Gotham. They had a pretty good character. Loved how they introduced Mr. Freeze as that character on that show more. But I kind of like the Otto Preminger character, and then they ran the baseball themed one with Batman and Robin when they stole the baseball pitcher, and they put Batman and Robin in this little seclusion cave where they got up, they froze to death because he had this little machine that controlled the temperature of the room. I just love that episode for some reason. I sit and watch that all the dang time. It's just, I love it.
Baseball Demo says his favorite is Frank Gorshin as the Riddler.
Oh, I love the Riddler too. He was pretty cool. I mean, I'm not a huge Jim Carrey fan. I don't think he was that great of a villain in the movies or anything like that. I was more of the the old school Batman for stuff like that.
Yeah,
I know. I guess in Gotham now, I guess they're going to try to end it with they're bringing in Bane. I guess, which is again, was a pretty from the comic books. But again, I'm not a comic book person. I was more of a baseball card collector, which I had thousands, baseball and football. And then I also started collecting wrestling magazines as I got older. And then I also, when I started getting older, living at home, I started doing the next best thing. I started collecting pro wrestling videotapes from somebody who's one of the leaders in the wrestling industry. So I got involved with him when he was a youngster and started getting tapes from him and watching stuff. So I had this big, huge collection of tapes somewhere in storage. I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to use them again since VHS is a thing of the past. But
that's weird, isn't it? It's so weird. Rob, Baseball Demos is who you want to talk to about that, not Sports Time Machine. It's weird just how much it's all changed from cassettes and records to everything being
8-tracks.
8-tracks, sure.
I remember watching and listening to it Shout It Out Loud from Kiss on an 8-track. God, I wish I knew where that was. So
yeah. Someone had a Donnie and Marie 8-track when I was 4, 5, 6 years old, and it bubbled. The tape, I think, started to melt, which is probably the appropriate thing for Donnie and Marie. Kirk actually asked a serious question. Favorite place to visit in the world? If travel was not an issue, where would you go?
Japan. I want to go see wrestling in Japan. It's been
sumo.
Pro wrestling. They know how to put on an absolute, their WrestleManias in Japan or at the Egg Dome or the Tokyo Dome every January every year.
Blood. I mean, they get into it.
They really do, and I wish I can do that. To honest, it would be pretty dang cool. I mean, I've been to Florida for Disney World from high school trip. Never been to California, so I've been to California. I've been to California when I went to see my brother who's in Idaho. So I flew to California, then flew into Spokane that way.
Oh, nice. So, have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
I haven't. It's something I want to learn. Sure, if someone ever wants to sit down and teach me or want to get involved in it, I would. I guess I want to see if my creativity part of my mind maybe would enjoy it. I'm not sure if I would. I mean,
send ID email because he's the one that asked that. So,
who said that?
I do. Yeah, and if you remember that we did that was so much fun because I never had done that before, and enjoyed the hell out of it. I had forgotten I was the only survivor of that adventure. Only because of just complete fluke.
One of my favorite grade B movies of all time, I consider to be grade B, was Tom Hanks's Mazes and Monsters. It was kind of like it's it's like kids in college. He took D&D too serious, and he took over his mind. So basically, when he was out in public, he thought he was this D&D character, and it got him to the point where it almost brought him to where he almost killed himself on top of the World Trade Center because he was so he thought he was a character that could fly and stuff like that. I believe it's Rana Jaffe's Mazes and Monsters. I believe it is. It's really good. It is a very young Tom Hanks movie. If you go through his different stuff. Early Tom Hanks,
early dramatic role too, because he was a comedic actor. He did Bosom Buddies and then Splash and Night. Did he do Night Shift? I just said, remember that movie well. It's pretty crazy. Any other questions for Mike?
And I remember going to New York City, and one of the favorite places we went to, this is before 9/11, was going inside, and my wife fell in love with it too when we went there too. Was the big toy store in New York City?
Schwartz, yeah.
FAO Schwartz, because they had the organ from Big in there. So,
who's your favorite wrestler of all time? Can't believe we went an hour and a half and I didn't ask you that.
I definitely want to say probably was Ric Flair because he was the. I love Hogan when he first came out. I love the Eye of the Tiger type music. It's something that I remember hearing when I first started watching it, but Flair with his 2001 Space Odyssey he comes in with, and then the matches itself and how he tells a story, the 1980s, and he actually did survive a huge plane crash that almost crippled him, and he came back. I've been to two WrestleManias. I've been to WrestleMania 10. I've been to WrestleMania 16. 10 was the famous last match between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels. 16 was Austin versus Rock in Philly. I've been to a couple SummerSlams, the one where Owen Hart almost paralyzed Stone Cold Steve Austin. I went to a year plus of ECW in Philadelphia when ECW was at the top of its game. So if you ever watched tapes back in or videotapes or off the WWE network, you'll see me in there second or third row for about 4 or 5 months straight. So again, we kept the same seats for about 4 or 5 months, and they were always in the one of the big television sections. So I was back there somewhere at a friend of mine saying, "Boy, you're always so lucky. I watch the old stuff and I can see you back there." Because it was awesome. And that was when I was, just about, 28, 25, 26 years old. And I had new friends I met, and they wanted to travel to Philly every month. And I went with them, and it was just a great experience. Used to eat at the greatest cheesesteak place in the world called Tony Luke's. It was love it as a if you ever want an unbelievable cheesesteak, that's one of my favorite places to go.
Don't make me hungry. It's 9:30 at night. I don't need any more food today. But yeah, you send ID an email about Dungeons and Dragons, and we'll get you hooked up. It's Chris and myself and her program, and we just had such an absolute blast, and would love to have you on there. So. All right, I think that was pretty much everything, all the questions that you had. And let me see if I had it. What would be, if you could, what would be your dream to call? Would it be a WrestleMania?
I think I'd rather I probably would do a World Series Game 7. Baseball is such a more slower pace. And then when I broadcast wrestling, I just bought the new video game. It's called Fire Pro Wrestling World.
Yes, Alan, Dave Gardner have played around.
Yeah,
with that.
They've been playing that, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to get this, and it is probably one of the greatest wrestling sims out there. You can do MMA on there, which I'm going to start doing a little bit of. You can actually do some boxing on there. Because you can have boxers and stuff like that. It's not realistic. You get too many knockdowns, but then the wrestling on there is just fantastic, and the character creation. But no, baseball to me, back to your question, is a little slower sport for me, and as much knowledge as I have for the sport, and it's kind of hard. Sometimes I try to do a 1980s game, and it's like, well, yeah, I try to talk about a player saying, yeah, he's going to be a fixture on this team for a long time, or I try to talk like the announcers would, kind of back then.
You do a good job. You do a good job of it. I mean, it's obvious that you've had some training and that you paid attention all those years. And thankfully, it wasn't to Rizzuto, because I haven't heard you ask about thunderstorms and cannolis and read Bill White's name wrong. Which is all the stuff that he did. A classic guy.
I'm happy a lot of times. I mean, last time I think I was on with Idea using my phone's hotspot, and it went great so far. I haven't lost you one bit. So
you've done really.
So that's really good. Sometimes where we're at, we don't really have internet, so I'm using hotspot. I kind of stole the hotel's internet pine in the back closet they don't really use. I kind of, since I got keys, I can kind of see things like that. I was like, man, no one's using this anyway, and I was able to get the passcode for the Wi-Fi, and it's actually pretty good. But it drops down too much. So
it's gone fine.
The hotspot's been perfect, so I've been pretty happy with that. So
really quick before
go ahead.
Really quick before we start losing people, your interest in bowling, you've done some of that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, glad you mentioned it. Grandfather, again, I don't know what your grandparents were like or where they grew up at, but my grandparents grew up in the East Catskills, New York. Honestly, loved them to death, but couldn't stand going there, leaving my own TV to go there, because they had maybe 1 or 2 channels. And it was, Grandpa, can you go ahead and switch the antenna around so we can get another channel? That was basically it. You got one.
Yes.
Yeah, it was very, it got bored easy. I didn't go out a lot. I wasn't the type to go, hey, I'm going to go out, look around, do stuff. I stayed inside. I made up games or something to to stay busy or stuff like that. Or hopefully my cousins would come over while we were visiting them there. So, while my mother and father, while we had the supper maybe at 4:30 with my mom's parents, or had, they had their coffee, or that's how I learned to probably do my numbers. I used to play scorekeeper for the many pinochle games between my grandparents and parents. Again, a game I kind of picked up later in life. I love pinochle.
I'm not a good card player, but I've never played pinochle.
It's a fun game, and so I learned. So I sit down there, be bored, and do scorekeeping there, and learn the game that way. And so so my grandfather had a love of bowling, and he used to watch it when he was there, and then when he used to visit our place, which I liked it more because I had my TV and my own room, is when, again, Saturday afternoon came around, he had to watch bowling, and that was something. Chris and Bo, exactly. And I do love it. It's a fun thing to watch. I watched a lot of the new stuff. I'm glad it's getting its popularity pushed right now on Fox and FX.
You caught the Brad and Kyle show on YouTube?
I haven't. I actually watched that bowling thing with the college that last weekend you guys were watching with Clinton.
Oh, that was fascinating. I sat there for hours and watched it. We're going to cut this off because I think Rob is starting a game real soon between the Sox and the Yankees. And I think people have gone there. But catch the Brad and Kyle show. They are two up-and-coming PBA players, and they do a podcast and a vlog before each event. And it's fascinating. They're both, I think, in their late 20s.
And I guess the only thing that bothers me about bowling these days is the two-handed bowlers now.
Oh, like Del Monte?
Yeah, the Belmonte thing. I don't get it.
It works.
It does for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, one word for me. Hey, buddy, this has been incredible, and I'm glad that you wanted to do this. If you are interested in doing the Ron Juckett Show, you can send me an email at SGS, VT Bub, Victor Tango, Bravo, Uniform Bravo, at gmail.com, and we will schedule a time for you and I to talk, just like Mr. Mike and I have for the last little bit. Been a fascinating conversation. I'm so glad we got to do this.
I can honestly say I've survived the Ron Juckett Show.
It's kind of like surviving the Larry King Show. It's not really that difficult. But thanks, I think. All right, so there you have it. We're gonna do this again in a little bit, and so until then, tomorrow, the Patriots challenge. We did Mr. Mike's team, the '86 Giants, and he didn't yell at me for them losing. It'll be the '78 Steelers and the 2007 Patriots. Any suggestions about what the Steelers should do on offense?
Well, it's going to be their defense, like you said with the Giants. They're gonna have to put a lot of that. The steel curtain is going to have to put a lot of pressure on Brady. So hopefully the computer AI will say, "Hey, let's send as much noise as possible. Let's send 4 guys. Let's send it. Let's put don't control Brady's run game." And I bet you with Shell and Wagner and Johnson at corners, they should be. This is where I sometimes go, are you crazy? Why are you rating him so low? I don't know. I honestly want to see how the Steelers are rated that season defensively. I know there's going to be a lot of 6s on the defensive. What are the maxes on the defensive line?
Tens.
Ham and 10. So Ham and Lambert will probably have a lot of the max numbers. But let's see. Let's see.
They won my championship in '78. They beat the Cowboys.
So the question is going to be: is Blunt going to be on Randy Moss? And we'll see if Randy Moss likes to get punked. So they made the new NFL rule because of Mel Blunt, because they didn't like Mel Blunt killing people off the line of scrimmage. And so let's see if he's put on him, and hopefully if you can't, you can switch it so Blunt should be on him. So to be
Their,
honest,
their defense is pretty good.
And then we have to see, can they run the ball against that Patriot? Will you're on offense, so
yes.
run the ball with Franco, and probably throw a lot to Stallworth, and hopefully get that high percentage bomb to Swan when he gets open. Because Swan only maybe caught 30 passes, but he had like 800 yards, so he averaged 20 yards a catch. So if you're going to get him, you're going to get him big on a seam, or you're going to get Stallworth for possessions, and hopefully you can control the clock and win. The problem is
Wire was the key to that offense.
Great blocking back too. So
yeah. All right, buddy. So that will be at noon tomorrow. Good luck to the Steelers. They're going to need it, and they certainly should never kick to Ellis Hobbs. Dave, baseball demos, just get a hold of me. You got my email, and we'll set up a time to do it because I really want to talk with you as well. All right. Hey, Mike, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate you.
All right. So give this video a like if you haven't already, and we do games for 4 or 5 days a week, and once in a while it actually takes the time to interview somebody. So thanks a bunch, guys, and we'll talk to you tomorrow at noon for the Patriots and the 78 Steelers. Until then, we'll talk to you the next time.